Our garden was getting really overgrown, so it was time for some pruning. When we'd finished, the cuttings were piled high, but despite the ageing trellis on the back wall, I had been reluctant to prune the clematis. Although it looks just like dead wood in the winter, every spring the wall was draped in beautiful pink flowers. But the winter gales came, and the trellis blew down, and it was time to get more radical. We decided to take the opportunity to rethink our garden and employed some gardeners to help us. I gave strict instructions to preserve the clematis. So Gardener A cut off all the branches, but left the stem intact. However, he failed to communicate to his colleague. Gardener B arrived the next day and cut the stem down to the ground. Too late, I discovered what had happened. But there was no alternative but simply to watch and wait, and wait, and wait. 2 months went by, but despite the good growing weather, there was no sign of life from this dead-looking stump. So one day, I went to pray over it. Lord, you give and you take away. If you want me to learn something about letting go, then I release this plant to you. But I know that you're the one who brings life out of death. You spoke to Ezekiel about dry bones coming to life. So I bless this plant to be full of life, if that is your desire. Within a month, it had started to sprout and was looking like this. And 4 years later, the whole back wall was once again covered in pink flowers in the spring. Reflecting on what had happened to the clematis, my thoughts turned to Isaiah. He was given an uncomfortable message by God to give to the people, which essentially boils down to this. You'll hear, but you won't understand. You'll see, but you'll miss the point of what you're seeing. And because of this, your hearts will be unreceptive to change, and you'll carry on as you've always been. And Isaiah asks how long this is going to go on for. And he's told about the difficulty and destruction that is coming. And the final part is this. Even if just 1/10 survives, it will be burned again. Imagine a terebinth or an oak. Once it's cut down, the stump remains. The holy seed remains in the stump. Later, Isaiah explains what will happen next. A green shoot will sprout from Jesse's stump. From his roots, a budding branch. The life-giving Spirit of God will hover over him, the Spirit that brings wisdom and understanding, the Spirit that gives direction and builds strength, the Spirit that instills knowledge and fear of God. Fear of God will be all his joy and delight. He won't judge by appearances, won't decide on the basis of hearsay. His words will bring everyone to awed attention. He will clothe himself with righteousness and truth. The impulse to right wrongs will be in his blood. It's easy to look at the shoots in our lives and be reluctant to let them go. But if we resist the pruning seasons, we resist the character growth that enables us to become carriers of life and bearers of branches that produce fruit that lasts and has an impact even beyond our generation.